as somebody who works in the private sector and always contributed to the tax system, public sector pensions are an annoyance for me. Now, I don't know if you work in the public or private sector, and if you do, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. If you're in the public sector, I'm sure you have a decent pension, and it was always the case in the past that because people in the public sector made a little bit less money, and they committed to helping the country, that they were given a little bit extra reward at the end of their working life, and they would have a guaranteed pension. However, in more recent times, that hasn't been the case, especially with the public sector wage increases that certainly the Labour government have been levying onto us. Those pensions and wages are going up all the time, and you just have to look at the pay disputes going on, and no doubt young doctors are worth their money, but certainly the real people, they got a massive pay rise, and lots of people in the public sector are getting these whopping big pay rises, in some cases in double digits. So you can imagine what it's like for people in the private sector like myself. I contribute to the tax system just like everyone else does, but I'm not getting this guaranteed pension that people in the public sector get. And this is irksome for people in the private sector, because in the private sector, we're generating all of the wealth required to run the country. The public sector takes the money from the country. Although they do a valid job and they're necessary, I'm not putting them down. The simple fact remains that people in the private sector pay for everything in the public sector. And there is no like-minded pension in the private sector. We have to go to private pensions, which are nowhere near as good as public sector pensions or as safe. Now, moving on to a recent group of information requests that were put through by the Telegraph. I'm going to put a couple of these local authorities on here. What struck me were two of these authorities, but just to give you a little flavour of the amount of money that these people in these authorities are spending. 24 councils throughout our country have put almost £3 billion into staff pensions over the last 5 years, whilst they've increased taxes by an average of 7% in the year 25 to 26. So 12 Scottish, 9 English and 3 Welsh local authorities now shell out more than a third of their council tax on staff pension contributions, with the total bill exceeding £730 million a year. Well over 60 councils spend at least 20% of what they collect. Now, looking at two of these on here, which I thought were spectacular, the Shetland Islands, they are contributing 111% of what they're taking in council tax towards their pension spend. So just think about that. Council tax is supposed to be there to fund local services and to assist in your area and whatever these councils want to spend your money on. But in the Shetland Islands, they are spending more than 100% of their council tax take on their pensions. You know, these government employees handing themselves these gilt-edged pensions, which a lot of the time are index-linked, which means that they're linked to inflation. So they're going to get the same level of money that they're agreed to today long into the future, and it doesn't matter about currency debasement. The amount that they're going to make will just keep going up with inflation. So I thought the Shetland Islands 111% was a massive figure. I mean, look at that. How can they justify that to the people of the Shetland Islands? Another highlight from this list was the city of Glasgow. Now, they only contribute 47%, almost half of the council tax that people are paying in Glasgow goes onto their pension spend. But look at that. £478 million per year of the billion that they take in. Almost £500 million for Glasgow officials, taken straight out of the council tax that they take in. Incredible. This is one of the big elephants in the room, according to people like Nigel Farage, who says public sector pensions are on the increase. It's a little known fact, perhaps you do know, that Keir Starmer's pension is so large it required its own Act of Parliament. I mean, these are the size of pensions that these people are getting. But when you look at the Shetland Islands there, 111% of the take. And you look at places like Glasgow, almost £500 million a year on pensions. You start to see the level of corruption that is littered throughout our system. These government officials have been creaming money out of this system for far too long. They've been awarding themselves these pensions without any real oversight, and they've been getting away with it for years, and this here is corruption on a massive scale. Just think of it. Handing themselves these pensions. But think of the people of the Shetland Islands. They know that when they're paying their council tax bill every month, and whatever it is, you know, the hundreds of pounds that people pay, all of it is going to public sector workers who've awarded themselves that pension. In fact, they're getting into debt over and above what they're taking in just to pay the pensions. An incredible state of affairs, and at some point this is going to have to be looked into, because as these public sector pensions increase and keep going on year after year, they're becoming unaffordable. And more to that, as the public sector increases in size every year, as is happening, last year it was at 44% of the total amount of employment. At some point, as that figure goes higher and higher and higher, as government ever more expands out, and as business gets destroyed, Rachel Reeves's intent, many businesses are going out of business at the moment with the NIC increase, or the jobs tax as many people are calling it. These public sector pensions are going to receive a lot more scrutiny, and I don't think people realise generally the state or the amount of money that these officials are taking from the people of this country. It's not a council's tax. It's a public sector pension tax. And they may as well call it what it is. And to ask normal, everyday working people who are struggling with cost of living and everything else to pay for these gilt-edged pensions is quite incredible in my opinion. Thanks very much for your time.